Can we just do something like that? Let's talk about random crap, and then we somehow link it to Lemuen at the end. That's easier, right?
No.
What do you mean no? You literally, that skin with monster was you talking about feet, and then we see monster's feet at the end.
What do you take me for, Devil? Some freak?
Yes. Okay.
Lemuen is a very special op. She's one of the characters a Hyperglyph locked in NPC form and didn't become playable for years after her first star appearance. So safe to say people were expecting a lot from her kit at release, and as it's usually the case with these kinds of ops, they really delivered, making Lemuen an actual beast that can even compete with ops like Whistle in terms of damage. So let's analyze her kit and see why she's so good. Starting with S1. Now, I know I said she's really good, but skill 1 is the one exception, and honestly I have more complaints than praise for it here. What it does is give her 6 ammo, makes her attacks hit 2 targets, and they deal 210% of her attack as physical damage. The skill is also automatically activated when charged, and is offensive recovery, which is going to be an issue for a lot of people already, since she now needs to attack something to get the skill. But Lemuen does have some things to mitigate this issue. The first is a very low SP cost of 8, which makes she only needs 8 shots to charge, or if you get her module, Lemuen gain 1 SP every time she shoots someone and they don't die. So realistically, it will usually take 5 to 4 attacks for it to charge, which is around 10 to 15 seconds if she doesn't stop shooting, and there are still other ways for you to help her here. Mainly ops that can give her free SP like Garchen, or much better suited for that, Mari. But why is she the best option here? Well, first because her talent restores SP faster than Chen's, but the main reason is that she's a Laterano op.
And why does being from Laterano matter?
That's because of Lemuen's talent 1. It makes so whenever an elite or boss stay in range of a Laterano op for 8 seconds, they'll get a mark above their heads. This mark makes so they take a plus 15% increased damage from all Laterano ops, and most importantly, Lemuen can attack these marked targets globally, which opens the gate for a variety of different strats, like deploying her facing a wall to not waste ammo, or using ops simply to mark enemies for Lemuen, that way she can attack them from wherever position she is, or even just use Lemuen herself to mark them, and whenever that's done, she won't lose track of them for the rest of her deployments or until whatever she's shooting at dies. This talent is the backbone of Lemuen's kit. Not only is she buffing the damage of an entire faction, including herself, but her gameplay also gains a new layer of complexity and allows for multiple different strats that make use of the mark. That's why Arquero fits well here even when discounting the SP battery for S1. And the best part of this talent is how universal it is. Arquero isn't any better than a 3-star when it comes to marking mobs, so whether you use her or the Nekill, the result is the same, and Lemuen will mark elites without any difference. Same thing for every op in this list. The only differences will come from things inside their kits, like Arquero's SP battery for S1 or the Exo's attack buffs from their talents. And as I said, this mark is crucial for Lemuen's kit. That's no different for S1 as you can see right now, because it allows her to cover multiple seconds of a map from one place. You can deploy her on one side of a stage while having another Laterano op at the other to mark mobs, and because she can aim at up to 2 targets per hit, it becomes very easy to cover more than one lane. That combined with good damage makes her really good on some maps where you have a lot of elites that can be marked. But like I said at the start, the skill does have some big issues, and I actually already mentioned the first one, which is her mark.
But I thought this was a good talent that gave her global range.
And there is. One of Lemuen's biggest appeals is the global range for marked mobs, together with her sword. But for S1 specifically, the issue is that it doesn't make good use of it. At the end of the day, this is an AFK skill, and not a very impressive one by itself. If you just use it to hold down one lane, it's not gonna be that great. It only becomes strong when she's shooting things across the map, so the mark is crucial for it to work. But it's here that Lemuen shoots herself in the foot with her archetype. Lemuen is a Dead-Eye sniper. For a lot of people, that's already a demerit, because the archetype focuses on attacking low defense mobs first while having higher than average attack, which is something most 6-star DPSs nowadays do as a side thing. But regardless on if you agree with that or not, or if you're very upset I use Mueller on the same example as Andrian, I think the most pressing question here is why does a character with a talent that marks elites and bosses so she can target them anywhere in the map, and a skill that specializes in dealing with those kinds of enemies, have a trait that makes her prioritize low defense mobs? Because she does that even over marked targets. S1 prioritizes lowest defense over any anything else, which can cause her to just waste all her skill on trash and leave the actual ideal targets alive. That's made even worse, and remember it's an ammo skill, so every shot counts here. But once she's spending all of it on low priority mobs, she'll have nothing left for the actual dangerous ones. Overall, this isn't a bad skill. The concept by itself is good. Having someone who can target multiple sections of a map, that way she can support other lateral ops in there by targeting the elites that show up. And if you bring her to the right map, she'll demolish the entire thing while killing most enemies easily. But that fully relies on the enemy lineup being favorable to Lemuen, and doesn't change how this skill just isn't fit for a data without some extra QL like prioritizing her marks. They could have even made so one bullet prioritizes lowest defense while the other goes for the highest one, for instance. That would really help when there are multiple enemies in range and still preserve the archetype's niche, but the way it is right now, S1 just doesn't quite fit her. It can still be useful in some cases, but it is her worst skill. Can she kill him?
Can we stop killing Patriot, please? Can we go kill, like, look, there's plenty of bosses. Kill,
He has many deaths yet to die now.
Can we kill him in a different Patriot map then? Wait, why does Patriot not have killing everyone else but
Now then we have S2. It's here that her kit starts making a lot more sense and actually fit with what she's supposed to be. What it does is give her plus 80 attack speed, plus 70% attack, 7 ammo, and if there are marked enemies on field, she'll start taking aim while gradually increasing her attack to 425% over 3.5 seconds. Then use 1 ammo to shoot either when her attack finishes increasing or when it exceeds that mob's defense and HP combined. That's quite a lot of words, but S2 itself is pretty simple, so let's go over this part first. That attack speed buff specifically is the interesting bit, because when Lemuen is aiming, her attack speed doesn't matter, S2 always takes the same amount of time to complete her attacks. The reason it's in there is for her to use on non-elites, which makes S2 actually good at dealing with them. And this time her archetype doesn't get in the way, because as you might have noticed by now, S2 doesn't consume ammo when shooting trash mobs. It works the exact same way as Lumen's S3, in that until a condition is met, the skill won't consume ammo. For him, that's having someone with a negative status to heal, while for Lemuen that's having a marked mob on field, which completely solves S1's problem of wasting bullets on trash. Not only that, but they actually make her prioritize marked mobs now, so Lemuen won't waste time on low defense trash when someone has a mark. That means S2 can be pretty decent lane holder option for low threat mobs, since she attacks fast enough to catch the fast ones while also dealing very good damage to any elites that appears, while also being one of the best boss killing skills in the game. And it's important to note that this is S2's specialization, elite killing. The lane holding falls apart very easily if you start mixing too many elites and trash mobs because of how long Lemuen takes to finish aiming. But S2 is very reliable in dealing with elites, not just because she'll prioritize them, but also because her damage is extremely high to compensate the aiming time. This is what makes S2 unique. But what exactly is this aiming thing? Well, Lemuen doesn't just shoot her bullets when someone is marked on field. She slowly takes aim before finally using her ammo. This aiming process takes 3.5 seconds, and the more time she spends doing it, the more damage her attack will do. And this is important to know because of what you just saw on screen now. Lemuen will fire her shot immediately if her attack exceeds her target's HP plus defense combined. This is why S2 increases her attack gradually. She's constantly checking to see if her next shot will kill the enemy. The moment she notices it will, there's no money to increase it, that way she saves the time it'll take to fully ramp her attack.
That sounds like just damage effects for steps. What's the difference of that and Milner?
Well, the answer is scaling. Lemuen S2 is a beast at single target damage, as you can see by her damaging Patriot for more than 10k per hit, while Miller's attacks are far weaker than hers, especially as his attack starts decreasing, so it takes all he has to barely kill Patriot here, with only 2 more hits to spare, while Lemuen killed him in 6 shots, which becomes more and more evident as defense increases, especially if the enemy doesn't have 60k HP like Patriot, which is the case of the chapter 15 golems. They have 3.9k defense and 25.6k HP on 8 stages, and as you can see, my max spot mod 3 Milner struggles quite a bit here, but for Lemuen they are a breeze to deal with, and she kills them in just 3 hits. This is S2's biggest strength. It can scale very well with enemy stats because of its absurd damage per hit, so it's pretty much the best skill if you want to deal with one very tanky guy, and it gets even better when you look at her talent too. What it does is very simple. After being deployed for 20 seconds, she gets 1 extra ammo on skills and attack plus 10%. Like I said, it's very simple but also effective. First, the ammo increase. It's just 1 extra ammo, yes, but when she's dealing more than 13k damage per shot, every new bullet will either add a truckload of extra damage or be an extra elite she might be able to kill, and it gets better because her module makes it 2 extra ammo instead of 1, so now you're adding 2 truckloads of extra damage. But this is the part I want to talk about, the extra attack she gets. Maybe you think that's small, and normally it would be, but remember, Lemuen's a Deadeye, the subclass of a very high base attack, and all his skills have really big attack multipliers. So an 18% attack increase from mod 3 is huge on Lemuen. You can even make that better with other attack buffers, since she does work really well with them, as you can see on screen now, and the best op to pair with her is actually not a buffer, but her sister. First, because she gives Lemuen a plus 18% attack buff just for existing, plus 26% if you have her pot 3. And yes, that is lower than something like Warfest 2, but 1, the buff is permanent, only requiring she be on field, and 2, acts as a Laterano op, which you need to mark targets, so bringing her gives both Lemuen a good attack buff as well as someone to mark elites with. In fact, using both acts when Lemuen is very strong inside the Laterano squad. Not just because everyone in there will be able to mark elites for Lemuen, but also because those marked ones will take extra damage from all Laterano ops. So they'll mark elites, which will be able to be targeted by Lemuen, and will take extra damage from every Laterano op in the squad. And if the op uses ammo skills, they'll also get buffed from X's talent. And the extra damage from both of them can really make a difference, especially as more elites appear throughout the stage. Back to S2, though I did glaze it a whole lot here, but this skill has some big issues. And the first is the amount of time it takes. Lemuen takes around 40 seconds to use all her ammo on S2, time mostly spent doing nothing, just sitting there taking aim. And it doesn't end there. I said she didn't have to deal with the Deadeye trait anymore, but that's not entirely true. Yes, she won't waste time or ammo on trash mobs, but if there are 2 or more marked enemies, she will prioritize the lowest defense one, which can consume the ammo you need for the main target or even make her change targets before dealing with who you want to kill, which is made even easier to happen because of how long she takes to shoot. But this one is honestly very easy to solve a lot of times, just don't deploy Lemuen near elites you don't want her to target. You can just drop her very far back from everything and use Laterano ops to mark who you want her to kill, so this one is still manageable. But then we have S2's biggest weakness, damage reduction. Remember that cool feature that lets her shoot without ramping up fully? Well, like I said, that works when Lemuen's attack is higher than the current HP plus defense of her target, but it doesn't take into account damage reduction, so when she's targeting a mob with that, S2 can false flag them and stop the attack ramp up too early because he thinks they'll die, just for the damage reduction to protect them. This isn't the end of the world for S2, since like you're saying it still works for 95% of the boss's HP, but it's honestly baffling to watch and pretty annoying sometimes. Something else S2 also has is dodge ignore actually, I just didn't mention it until now because it's quite irrelevant. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's very useful when it comes into play, but there are almost no bosses or elites with dodge compared to the ones that don't have, so I've legit never seen it come into play outside of Manfred in chapter 10, but like I said, it's nice to have. Overall, S2 is very solid all things considered, and certainly a step up from S1 since it actually makes sense inside her kit. It does have those problems I mentioned, but they don't ruin the skill, especially the ones that can be solved by playing better. Honestly, the biggest problem S2 has is that it's competing with S3, because that skill really takes Lemuen to another level. But S2 is still really good and will definitely be busted in the right stages.
私どうぞ次の喪失確認
Okay, Nemo. Can she do it?
That's right.
狙撃位置確保具体的な位置までは知らなくていい 機能喪失確認
Did she just waste her shot?
Don't worry, Dumbo.
どうぞ
Well, that's enough. That should be enough.
Of course it is.
No, not.
Finally then we get to the main attraction, S3.
どうぞ機能喪失確認
Like I said, this is Lemuen's best skill and what makes her busted. What it does is make Lemuen stop attacking and give her 5 ammo, that will become 7 with talent 2, then every 0.5 seconds she'll spend 1 ammo to lock a target onto one enemy in range, and when it's all spent, an orbital strike will drop for every bullet consumed that deals 450% AoE physical damage where it lands and 300% around it. Now, for as confusing as it all sounded there, S3 is very simple like S2, but it becomes quite complex with how many ways you have to use it, and that starts simply with how she spends ammo. Just like the text says, every 0.5 seconds one ammo will be consumed and a circle will be formed around the map that bullet was used on. Then once Lemuen runs out of ammo or you manually deactivate S3, the orbital strikes will be launched where her target is located at. And this launch condition already gives you a layer of complexity. You can of course just use the skill, wait for her to spend the ammo and watch the strikes fall. Or you could use an enemy that's passing through her range by purposefully activating S3 so one ammo is left once they leave. That way the strike location will move together with them to a better position with more mobs around, so you can drop everything on them by deactivating the skill, or time it so 2 groups of mobs getting close together have everything drop on them when they meet, which is actually something you might have to do considering the targeting of S3. The way it works is very unique considering how the other skills do it. She prioritizes lowest defense like S1 does, but instead of prioritizing just one mob, Lemuen will cycle through all enemies that can be targeted by her, which is what you saw on screen now. First she marks the dog, then she markets some shield guards in order without repeating anyone until running out of ammo. For some people that's a pretty bad way of doing it, but I'll see right now that this is the best possible targeting to give S3, because this skill is extremely versatile. This isn't S1 where it just wants to lane hold by killing elite so the low defense priority gets in the way, or S2 where she wants to hyper focus on specific targets so it needs the priority for marked mobs. Do you want to nuke a boss with it? She can do it. Want to delete an entire wave of mobs that have 4.8k defense? Do it! Want to do the same strike zone carry strat, but this time you kill the mob that's been marked? Since another feature of S3 is that if an enemy being marked dies, the strike zones will remain where he was, so Lemuen can choose to activate it whenever she wants and basically create a death zone to instantly kill any enemy that enters it. I think you get the point. S3 has a lot of different uses, some of which wouldn't be possible without the weird targeting. And yes, it does get in the way sometimes, but even in those cases you can usually play around it. Take the clip you just saw for instance. Would you rather Lemuen focus on just Patriot, deploy her facing the wall? I'm not even joking here, deploy her facing a wall and use a 3-star to mark him, that way she can focus all her fire on just Patriot and still hit his surroundings. This was actually used in the S3D18 Relic Sezomic without push. They deployed her facing a wall and marked the boss with X, so that way Lemuen will focus all her strikes on just him and still be able to hit all mobs around. Which takes us to my next topic, her damage. It's high. Okay, compared to S2 is not on the same level. You can see that an entire S3 dealt as much damage as 4 S2 shots here, but then we have one of the most broken things about S3. The cycling. Lemuen dishes out the entire skill in less than 6 seconds, which for the amount of damage it deals is pretty absurd. You can see that on this clip, by the time S3 is half recovered, S2 has just spent half of its ammo. And by the time S3 is back, S2 is still not done shooting. So even though it dealt a lot less damage per activation, S3 ended up killing the boss faster thanks to the cycling, while S2 even managed to fumble the kill because of the damage reduction. But her shooting time is just one half of the equation, and the other half is her module. As I talked about on the S1 section, it gives her 1 SP every time a hit doesn't kill an enemy. This makes so if she doesn't stop shooting, which is often the case with the kinds of mobs you'll be facing, her SP will go from a 38-second charge to being full in 28 seconds. That means you're cycling through all of her damage and getting a new S3 in just around 35 seconds. Or in other words, you could activate both Lemuen and Wizardel S3, and while Lemuen uses all of it in 6 seconds, Wizardel would only finish hers a few seconds before Lemuen recharges. That's how good S3 cycle skill is. There's also the extra 2 ammo she gets from mod level 2, which as I showed before is really worth it on Lemuen since every bullet she gets does some absurd damage. After that she only gets an extra buff to Laterano up, so don't need to go for that if you don't plan on using them. And since we already compared their cycles, it's good to show how Lemuen's damage does against Wizards. The short answer is that Lemuen S3 is very similar to S2 in that its strength comes from scaling. If we just take this patroclip, you'll see she loses to Wizardel, both in damage to the boss and the mobs around it. But Wizardel starts struggling more as you increase the stats, sometimes just barely killing any mob with her full S3, while Lemuen just brute forces away for their defense. But this next example really shows where Lemuen shines. The shields you see on screen have 4.8k defense on this map, so Wizardel's damage drops off a cliff here. She also isn't able to keep up with that many high defense enemies, but Lemuen just deletes most of them, and because the damage is all out really fast, no one is able to leak through 2. Even the ones left can't fight against the fast cycle, and Lemuen just charges another S3 to delete them as well. And the best part here is that these guys aren't even elites, so Lemuen isn't even dealing her full damage since they can't be marked. This isn't to say Lemuen is stronger than Wizardel, Devil still has a lot of other stuff in her kit that makes her generally better, like her 3.5k HP and 50 rest summons that also give her camo, as well as a splash damage area the size of a chapter 10 cannon. But the fact there are cases where Lemuen completely trashes Wizardel in terms of damage really shows the potential of this skill. The only real problem you might have with S3 is that it can be hard to use, something you probably noticed thanks to some of the cases I showed here. It's nothing like trying to solo a stage with a summoner, but S3 definitely has a high skill ceiling, and you know what they say about Ian. If you do manage to use it well though, it's very worth the effort. This is by far her best skill and a very versatile one. Overall, Lemuen is a very unique op. Her playstyle is very tied to other Laterano ops, both to help her offense as well as give some support back. She does all this while being one of the hardest hitting ops in the game, and they manage to fit these two sides really well so one doesn't overshadow the other. You are very incentivized to bring some Laterano op with her to help with marking, but that's not a requirement, she still works fine without them. You can even just bring a bunch of 3 stars if you want to mark other mobs. All this makes Lemuen a very good op that I can definitely recommend leveling if you manage to get her. The only thing that's difficult to do is telling you to go out of her way to pull her. If you've already got exo from her banner, then I can't say it's worth it meta-wise because of who we're gonna get shortly after this banner, but I definitely recommend her if you want to have fun. And if you do want to know more about her non-blood related sister and why she's basically a must pull, I made a video about her you can go watch now, as well as another one ranking every future 6-star, so go watch if it sounds interesting. Just leave a like and subscribe before you go, and also comment what you think of Lemuen. And if you want to support me, get a channel badge, use emotes on my comments, get early access to videos like this in the future, or even appear on a Blended special place, you can also consider becoming a member. I'll also think you're really cool if you do that.
どうぞあなたの途方に聞くのは誰なの考えたこと
That's it then. Bye.
ドクタータイヤが地面の隙間にはまっちゃったみたいちょっと手伝ってくれないほら手を貸してハイタッチタイヤとっくに引っこ抜いてるわ